In the first episode, I showed you guys the starting point for this Suzuki RM125 build that one of you will win, tore the bike down to the frame, and disassembled the engine. Today, we're going to jump right into episode 2, beginning with work on the engine components and getting them ready to Cerakote. As a reminder, you can enter to win this bike over on my website, and the winner will also be given the option to come ride with me in Montana this spring on your new RM125. Every $25 spent, whether that is on merchandise or direct entries, gets you one chance to win, and the price goes down if you buy direct entries in bulk. A significant portion of the revenue from this build will go directly to Daniel Schmidt, who is a Montana racer training to take a shot at the Pro Nationals. By entering to win this bike, you are not only supporting my ability to build these bikes here on my YouTube channel, but you are also supporting a Montana rider's dream to go race against the pros. And while of course this number will go up, at the time of recording this, there are only 24 people entered for their chance to win. Now let's talk about this engine. In the past, you guys have seen me bake the cases in the oven prior to bearing removal, but this time around I used the MAP gas torch. 20 to 30 seconds around a bearing generally expands the case enough to make removal easy. For those blind bearings, while I used to use the bread method, there's something about shoving bread into a case that is one day going to be a running motorcycle is just hilarious. I now use the spend bread method, where I instead buy the appropriate tool and use it for the rest of my life. This Tusk blind bearing puller makes the job so easy and takes way less time than my old bread method. When I started working on bikes, I made a rule for myself that when I need tools, I will buy them. There are a lot of ways to do tasks incorrectly and save a few bucks on a tool, but they often take longer and can result in damaged components. You will see shortly in this video, sometimes I have to remind myself of that rule I made. Note there will be a link in the description to all of the useful tools I use in this video in order to build an engine, and those that go through Rocky Mountain do earn me a small commission. Now speaking of tools, my channel has grown substantially since I first set up toolbox widgets in my toolbox, so a lot of you don't actually know how my toolbox is organized to keep me on task during these bike builds. These are magnetic tool organizers that are legitimately awesome and have improved my experience wrenching. They actually save space in your toolbox, organizing your tools closer together, and they provide accountability as there are defined spots for your tools so you know when one is missing. They prevent your tools from sliding around, and they are modular so you can add to or change the setup at any time with ease. They are actually a Montana company, which I think is really cool, and you can use the code KincaidPavich at checkout to save 10%. The link to Toolbox Widget is also in the description below. Continuing on with disassembly, you can see the impeller is labeled left-hand threads. That means I need to go right rather than left to loosen it. This thing was actually pretty well seized up, but I was eventually able to get it loosened and removed. I sorted all of my hardware to go out to Nick's Vapor Honing Services to be re-zinced, and while those bolts soaked in a degreaser bath, I moved on to the cylinder to disassemble and inspect the power valve components. Once I got that taken apart, I did see a few areas that need my attention to ensure this power valve can operate smoothly, but we will return to that soon. With the hardware degreased, I laid it all out for a total count before packaging it up and shipping it off to Pennsylvania. Soon, these bolts will be unrecognizable. Now I had a scary discovery regarding the oil drain bolt. I noticed when I pulled the drain bolt, it was somewhat difficult to unthread. Now that the cases were on my bench, I could see the drain bolt threads had been helicoiled. Now, helicoils get a bad rep because when done right, they can be very reliable. I did see a very small edge in the bottom of the case that I didn't like, as if that were ever to break off, it could lodge itself in the transmission. I smoothed that out with a prime wheel along with some other scratches and gouges in the case itself. With the drain bolt threaded all the way in, everything looks solid. But are the threads bad or is the bolt bad? Watch as I thread it in and you can see it get hung up at different spots. I went to the hardware store and bought an M12 by 1.25 die to recut the drain bolt threads and answer my question. With those threads recut, the bolt threaded in without issue. I tightened and loosened the bolt about a dozen times to verify that I could reliably trust those threads for many, many oil changes to come. Since the case was already helicoiled, redoing it risks too much material loss to reliably rethread the case again, so the fact that I feel this helicoil is trustworthy after those tests is really great news. I did still order a brand new drain bolt so that the threads are perfect. Now here you can see me setting up my brand new 12-ton press from Harbor Freight. I have needed a press for so long and keep putting it off because of my excuse I don't know where it's going to go. My little 19 by 19 garage is pretty well packed, but that is no excuse to not own a tool that I need. If you recall from episode 1, the Barnett clutch basket that was in this engine had notching on the steel fingers. I called Barnett and they would replace those fingers for $35, which is very reasonable, but the fact that those notched at all shows it's not the highest quality basket on the market. I will be switching to a Wiseco clutch basket, which has a lifetime warranty and it's hard anodized and Teflon coated, which makes it incredibly resistant to notching or breaking. That said, the gear on the back side of the clutch basket needs to be pressed out of the Barnett basket and into the Wiseco basket, and in order to do that, I need this press. I've spent more money at machine shops over the years having them press things for me than this press cost me, so there is another lesson learned in buy tools when you need them. And look, the thing tucks in nicely behind my sled, just below my feature on the cover of Rolling Stones with the most legendary goggle tan mullet combo I've ever had. Now returning to the cylinder and power valve, you can see just how rough the metal inside this power valve looks. While these components do get coated in some two-stroke oil, the surface should be as smooth as possible for optimal power valve operation. Using some abrasive wheels on the Dremel, I smoothed out these internal surfaces. Take a quick look at the left side here after I buffed it out compared to the right. Now somehow I didn't even notice until I slid the power valves back in that the left one was broken. You can see when I slide the stopper plate in where this one used to contact when it would close. These parts are unfortunately unavailable from Suzuki, but thanks to my awesome followers on Instagram, I was able to quickly source a brand new set that 834 Moto build sold me for $150, so this power valve will be fixed soon. Only one step remains before masking and blasting all of these parts. The engine cases need just a little more love, repairing some imperfections using prime wheels on the rotary tool. After a couple quick minutes, I smoothed case imperfections out nicely and also cleaned up the bearing surfaces a little bit. I scraped any remaining gasket material and then did one final degreasing to remove any oil and grease before these parts get masked. While I let those parts soak, I opened up Photoshop and began mocking up custom designs for the clutch and ignition covers, as I will be working with 2SM Performance, who will be machining some custom covers for this build. 2SM makes sweet billet parts and was a part of the CR250 build, so I'm thrilled to be working with them again. With the engine components degreased, it was time to begin the masking process. Masking engine parts for Cerakote is tedious and time-consuming, but also satisfying. I use this heat tape that I bought on Amazon as it can withstand the temperatures required for Cerakote to cure. I carefully cover each surface that I don't want blasted, and to trim the excess, I use a file where it is accessible and also an X-Acto knife. For the exhaust port in the cylinder, it was tricky to mask, so I got creative and glued a piece from my bearing driver kit into the cylinder to be removed later on. I spent the next couple of hours masking each component. For the hole in the left crankcase where the countershaft sits, I just used an FMF exhaust plug, as I didn't have a plug large enough for my Cerakote plug kit. But in general, for plugging holes, I use these rubber plugs from Cerakote that can also withstand heat. With everything masked, I got to blasting. I just have the Harbor Freight blast cabinet and I'm blasting with 100 grit aluminum oxide as recommended by Cerakote. Once all of these parts were blasted, I put them each in the oven for 1 hour at 300 degrees to gas out any residual oil or grease as the final step before Cerakoting. With the parts prepped, I hung up my spray booth and put a drop cloth over the bikes and sled to protect them from overspray. For these cases, I am trying a new color of Cerakote, E250 Titanium. I'm excited to see how this color turns out, but I think it's going to complement the purple accents beautifully. That is right, we are going with purple accents. I was on the fence and leaning towards gold, but really this comment got me. It has 96 likes, and I noticed many people felt strongly against gold, while I had very few comments like that about purple. I really liked my 03 RM125 build, but I did get some critiques of too many colors, and I see where they're coming from. So, taking all of your feedback into consideration and avoiding that same critique on this build, I am excited to show you all of the parts coming soon for this bike. After these cases cured, I was able to remove the masking to reveal this titanium color in all its glory. Overall, I am very pleased, and I think it's going to work very well with purple and the dark gray I have in mind for another small accent. It is not terribly different from the raw aluminum, but it is a little deeper and a more uniform color. Now you will see inside the cylinder quite a bit of blast media got through. Sometimes small passageways form under the masking, or the tape gets blown off in one area and media gets inside of components. It has not caused any damage, but it would if not all removed. So these parts will get a thorough scrub and blasted with air to remove any leftover blast media. But just take a look at the shell of this RM125 engine and picture it with a purple fathead and those custom clutch and ignition covers from 2SM. Please don't forget to enter if you would like a chance to win this bike and a trip to come ride with me in Montana. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as we are on the road to 200,000. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.